Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. Today I wanted to show you the beginning of the final castle project. If you've been following my channel, you've seen that I've done a sort of mock-up castle. I have posted that on the clearance sort of sale page of the website. I'll be opening that up within a few days as soon as I can get my hands around organizing some computer stuff. But anyway, that was my practice piece to begin this sort of forest of foam you see behind me. So what I've done, what I want to show you today is just some of the rough cuts that I've done and some of my thoughts, both taking from that previous project, what is some of that insight provided me on this project, and some general ideas I have that are going to push this project much further than the previous one. So, taking a look at the superstructure, if you will, at this point, basically it's got some of the basic foundations that the previous castle piece did, but scaled up quite a bit more. So from the floor to the top here, it's 14 inches of the expanded foam dressed by, I think, what is that? That's a 3/4 inch sheet of the high density foam. And then the customer requested a 9.5 inch tall opening to enter the castle. Now that's a fairly big opening, but the idea is to be able to try to fit a Mumakil through it. And so, and I'll show you the interior in a second, and I think hopefully that's going to provide enough height, and I think now there's going to be enough space in the interior. My only concern would be for the width, as the howdah of that model is quite wide, but it might be the kind of thing where you could have the the tusks and the head pointing out from the backside, and then in the movement phase, remove the model and then stick it sort of butt in this way to come out the rest of the way. So I think it'll be playable for the most part. Because it's a 9.5 inch tall opening in a 14 inch tall wall, what I did is just sort of split the difference for setting it into the middle of the wall. And as I wanted it to be a little bit off the ground so I could have a small ramp coming off of the front, but obviously I can't lift it too much higher or I'm going to be impeding any top dressing that I do along the top, or make this so artificially thin that it almost seems like it would be unnecessary to have it. Why not just have it open on both sides? So I just sat it in 2 inches high from the foundation of the table. The stacks of foam that you see here on the side, these are going to be the buttresses. Now, what I've done in the past, as though I've been doing these for years, what I did on the last project was to make a single stack of the column of foam for the buttress, and then I sliced it in half so that I could set each half up against the wall. And that was my original plan. But in this instance, I've noticed, and it will be hard to see here, but there is a very, very gradual taper from the wall, from the floor up to the top. It probably recesses in about a 1/2 inch, and I'm not too sure why that happened. It might be I kept bending the foam or something, I don't know. Overall, I kind of like it, as if it's going to have to leaning inward is going to give it a nice dramatic look, and it might make a nice look on the buttresses, the towers on the wall, I should say, as they'll be a little bit wider at the top as they come up vertically than they will at the bottom, and I think it might add a very slight dramatic appeal. As I said, the slope is pretty gradual going up. But in any case, I plan to have the towers probably about this high. Let's see, 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That would be 22 inches high. Why 22? Well, I realized on the last project I ran out of space, kind of. I felt crushed to put in a door on that. And I would like to put a door on these so that you could presumably enter the towers from the walkway, even though the tower walkway is a full... Well, let's come in a little closer here and I'll see if I can show you that. The towers are 4 inches wide on this one. They're actually 4 1/4 across, which is quite a bit wider than the previous one, which was 3.5, I think. And so when these towers are cut in half and then fill the circle on the back, there is going to be a sizable walkway available behind them, so I won't need doors to pass between the sections, but it would be nice to have one in any case. And I want to have dressing coming down off of the top of the towers, you know, with some large sweeping arches. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you another picture again of the Cirith Ungol piece, and I'm going to discuss some of the design aesthetics that I want to impart onto this project. But in any case, if you can imagine, the half circle, as per the last castle, will fill in something like that, and there'll be enough room theoretically for easily to have one model pass behind this on the walkway. So this stack of foam, actually I'll pull back here again because it's so big it's hard to see it from close up. So I did a second stack to be cut in half. So my thinking was I could have 3 towers along the wall, one here, one flanking on this side, and then, let me just loosen this up, there we go, and then one in the far corner here. Whoop, there we go, just behind this tower. I may need to cut more discs, as I may not be able to get 2 towers out of each stack. I'm going to have to see once I begin the cutting on that. This large stack here, this is going to be the sort of flying tower, the tower that is separate from the overall structure, and this is going to have a 4-inch walkway joining to the upper deck here. And I have started some thinking about how I'm going to dress this. My main fear initially was to avoid making it look like a rocket, as I want to put in some buttresses and some supports along the bottom. But I was taking a look at the Cirith Ungol piece, and I got some real ideas for it, and I'm going to discuss that at the end. But this gives you an overall sense of the stature of the piece in scale compared to the rest of the structure. These discs are 7 inches in diameter, and this is also I think 22 inches tall. I'm going to unclip from the tripod here, and we'll go take a look at the middle. So, taking a look inside, one of the things that has changed since my initial mock-up is that I originally planned on facing the interior here with 3/4 inch high-density foam, and this side with 3/4 inch high-density foam. Once I abandoned that idea and decided to go with the polystyrene exposed as it is, that meant, of course with the foam coat on it, that meant that I could recut the floor and gain a full 1.5 inches in width in the interior here. So this has actually opened up quite a bit in here, and if I get the tape measure, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. It's hard for me to measure and do this. Anyway, it is about 7.5 inches across on that interior spot now. So that's going to provide a lot more space to try to fit in that Mumakil or 2, and I think that that's going to work out really well. This will be the interior, sort of section of the fortress, and I realized looking at the Helm's Deep model that they actually had a very flat top, in frame, a very flat top for their piece, rather than having a large parapet or wall section around it as well. And that's going to make it a little bit easier to access this point from the interior here, as I've got some problems now, which I'll talk about in just a second. But in any case, I decided that I'd leave this flat. I thought I would make a small step coming up to this slightly raised area just to give it a little bit of topographic difference, and then have some decorative trim around here, but nothing sitting up really high and not having this really deep as well. So that's the plan for the top here. And then it made me think, because I've got the extra space in the interior, what I'd like to do is do some hanging sort of tower. I don't know what these are officially called. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure, on the comment section. But you know, where they have a half a tower sitting off and then suspended, and the bottom tapers to meet the wall of the structure. So that's my plan, and I'll see, that's an optional piece at this point, but I think if I do some really careful cutting, I'm feeling a little bit more confident about my cutting ability now, and my use of the 3D scroll table. I think I can get a very smooth join with this surface to the actual deck of the inner fortress, and that might be a really nice addition, something that overhangs the deep interior of the structure and gives, you know, just a little bit more detail, a little bit more playing area, and a whole lot more jazz, as we say. So, problems looking forward to working on. Well, originally, I'm coming up here so I can reach into this behemoth. Originally, the plan was to come from the door and ramp spiral up to meet this area somehow. But because of the sheer magnitude of these walls and the relatively short distance to traverse here, that's going to be a very, very steep ramp. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit and come up with some ideas about how to meet that. But I think I may end up coming up with a solution that was suggested for the stairs, as I'm also going to have that problem in the stairs. I'll have basically the same amount of distance to traverse that I had in the last piece, but now I have to climb an additional, I think, 6 inches in vertical height. That's a lot of vertical height to travel, so most likely, unless the customer strongly objects to it, I'd like to go with stairs up to a point, insert a door, then put an opening in the top, a hatchway that would represent models traversing from the interior of the wall up to come to the walkway. That may be a solution to do on this side as well, as walk up, the ramp as much as I can up in height, then maybe put in a stairway along the back side to traverse some of the additional height, and then put in a door, and then maybe a trap door in the back. That's kind of my thinking at the moment, although it's very, very preliminary to say the least. As a final comment on this, I have gone through and done all the brick carving for the outside, and because I noticed with the previous piece that irregularities in the layers really came through in a couple spots, what I did is I took some very, very light sandpaper and I just smoothed out the overall surface, tried to remove some of the lines between the seams and just bring it all kind of back into somewhat uniformity, and then went in and took a real careful time cutting these blocks nice and straight and beautiful, and I can already see, just from my own eye, real improvement on the texturing on the outside of this. This is going to paint up much better than the last one did, and I think we're going to see some real improvements on the exterior surface of this. So hopefully some of that improvement will carry on into the towers, and that's going to really add quite a bit. I am interested in still putting in some buttresses despite the vociferous objections that people had, but they will be much different in shape and dimension, much thinner, with a lot more vertical, angle to them, and have them tie into the dressing of the top of the wall with large sweeping arches. So at this point, it's probably a good point to cut over to the Cirith Ungol piece, and I can show you exactly what I'm talking about for overall styling that I'd like to impart on this piece.
So taking a look at this tower, this is one of the Cirith Ungol towers. I don't know if there were multiple of them, but in any case, avoiding the deeply fluted top, what I really focused on were these buttresses. And I had looked at them before, but I really took a second look at them and realized, they're prominent, they have a high weight to them visually, but they are relatively vertical with that angled top. And that felt like something that I should probably try to emulate in this piece. Then looking at this photo, I stared at this photo a lot. And I was trying to, aside from the fact that it's square and I'm building a round structure, I wanted to look at the dressings on it, the things that give it flavor. And looking at the walls, I noticed, of course, there are those two small buttresses at the bottom, a larger one on that inner wall that traverses all the way to the top. These walls do have crenellations, and forgive the granularity of the photo, I'm sort of magnifying a low-res photo, but there are some crenellations on this piece. But what really captured, I think, the flavor that I want to impart in this new castle project is the way all of these towers are dressed with these large sweeping arches in their sort of I don't know what they're called, the arches that are hanging over the edge of the tower tops. You see them on that shorter one, and then you see even here a double layer where there's a large pendulous drop that's an embossment, if you will, on the wall, and then these sort of dressings around the top of the tower, each having that pendulous, sort of like a flying, not flying, but like a hanging buttress. And that's something I think I want to emulate on this piece as well.
So having looked at those photos, and again, just really staring at them and thinking about them for a while, I realized that, that is really going to add a lot of drama to this facing, to have, sort of a deep fluted arch with a large drop, and then having a very steep buttress with a taper possibly meeting some of those flutes to tie the top and the bottom together and give it a multi-layered look. I think that's part of the aesthetics of that piece. And again, for those of you who haven't been following this since its early inception, this is designed to be a sort of, my idea is to make it, one of a castle of the forces of man that has then been taken over by the forces of Mordor and corrupted. So having some of that work placed on the exterior is going to give me places to corrupt, if you will, and to add some of those evil features that I have some visions for. So I think that is the way I'm planning to head at this moment. Some of those deep, nice flutes hanging off. And with this section here, the larger tower, I think that's going to help alleviate some of that, my fear of that rocket look. Although, to be fair, that Cirith Ungol piece looks a little rocket-like, depending on your opinion on it. But in any case, I don't plan on doing any major tapering here. I'm not ready to start lathing, although if I get a real gumption for it, maybe I'll try it. But my plan, though, is to have prominent buttresses coming up with that large, deep fluting on the top, and I think that's really going to give this a very nice feel. And is going to give it, of course, tie it in with this piece as well structurally. So that's the plan as it's going forward at the moment. I plan on putting in quite a bit of work over the next day or two on this piece, and perhaps if I get a lot done tomorrow, maybe I'll shoot another video, keep you up to date on its progress. But if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below, and you can be sure that no matter what happens, I'll be back soon with another video.